Hey everybody, welcome to the Fire Up with CJ show. Today we're going to be talking about your soul's evolution. And we have Dr. Linda Backman, and we're talking about her book, The Evolving Soul. So welcome, Linda.
Thank you, CJ. It's nice to be with you.
So I wanted to start talking about the soul's evolution because you have this really interesting little chart in your book that talks about souls vibrating at a certain color. And then that we also have like a progression that we go through. And I wanted to find out a little bit about what that is and how you found that out.
Okay. So bottom line, simple explanation, there's only one reason we come into body, lifetime to lifetime. And if we just really cut to the chase, we're coming into body to evolve as a soul. We're coming into body to evolve as a soul because we're intended to assist humanity to evolve.
Okay.
So that's, kind of the bottom line of a lifetime to lifetime. Through the course of both the person I studied with originally, who guided between lives regression, and then, his studies probably cover as many as 7,500 regression cases, CJ, that were not, prompted, along with mine, which I'm guessing maybe are at the point of 1,000 to 2,000. What we've learned is that as the soul evolves, the soul increases in frequency, and as colors shift through the colors of the rainbow, those colors increase in frequency. So a young soul tends to be on the more, pink to red range, if you will. And as we evolve through hundreds, if not thousands of lifetimes, so this isn't like, last lifetime I was in the stage 1, you might say the range of red, and next lifetime I'm in, the green range. It doesn't work that way. It takes a great number of lives to evolve. But the bottom line is, as we move through the colors of the rainbow, based on the frequency of our soul and the frequency of color, that's how, in a between lives regression that I guide with clients, we learn about one piece of information about how evolved is our soul.
And then how does that usually come across? Because you've talked about doing 1,000 different interviews with folks. Do they go into the past life regression wanting to know how evolved their soul is, or is it something that just kind of comes out in the course of the conversation? How do you elicit that information? Basically, how can I find out what age I'm at and how evolved or not evolved? Let's cut to the chase.
That so many ask. So I think first comment to explain away any better, worse kind of perspective of, oh, well, it's better to be a green soul than be, an orange soul. Not true, because the bottom line is, you, like me, I'm sure, we go to first grade, we have to finish that, we go to second grade, third, fourth, and so on and so forth. So there's nothing better or worse about where we are in our soul's evolution. But when a client comes in for what I call a between lives soul regression, which is a moderately lengthy regression that I've been guiding for, 12 years maybe, many times clients want to know just what you said. Well, where am I in my soul's evolution? So during the regression, and giving you, rather than a 5-minute explanation, a minute or 2 explanation, during the regression, we ask about the perceived color of the client's soul. And at the same time, the regression therapist, and I train people in regression, the regression therapist has to understand what are the other sort of corroborating pieces of evidence during regression that support, the client is green, not orange, or the client is blue, not red. It isn't just about color. We have to piece together information that comes from the regression that substantiates the client's soul color.
Okay, got it. So, but and one of the things I thought was interesting in your book is that you said it kind of follows Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that the way that the soul progresses is trying to get, like you're saying, the first grade, second grade, so on, and graduate degree, I assume, is that it follows a progression. So in the first couple of lifetimes, you would be learning about first grade kind of stuff, like how to keep safe, how to, and then the second grade you'd be moving up that progression, which I thought It was fascinating. And how did you find that out? Again, through the regressions with other people, or?
Yes, primarily through, I've been guiding, I'm a psychologist by training.
Yeah.
I started guiding past life regression in the early 90s. Then in the mid to late 90s, I learned about between lives regression. And that's where we learn about soul evolution, what is your soul color, so on and so forth. How did you plan your life, and a great deal more than that.
Right.
Then I began working with clients, 98, 99, to learn about where are we in our soul's evolution. And your analogy is perfect, CJ. And the bottom line is that, think about it, if you're in grade 12, the demands on you learning-wise are higher or more robust, or whatever word you want to put to that.
Right.
If you're in undergrad, that's more demanding than being in high school.
Right.
So if you're a blue soul, your life intentions are at a higher level of expectation. It's a little bit like, if you know anything about diving, competitive diving, the diver chooses a dive that has a degree of difficulty, and the points that diver receives are based on how well they accomplish the dive, but the more complicated dive brings the diver higher points. So if I'm a undergrad versus a high schooler, there's more expected of me.
Yeah, and actually something all of a sudden clicked in my head. When you said that, all of a sudden your chapter started coalescing in my head. And here's what I just came as my personal aha. I've been trying to, and we're going to be talking about this a little later on, try to figure out what ray I am of the 7 rays. And lifetime after lifetime, I seem to be coming in, trying to change things up, getting killed, mutilated, give up, a series of different expressions. But the interesting thing is each lifetime I have kind of a different approach. Some is about just kind of safety. Some is about, it kind of goes through that progression. But as you say in your book, I have a common theme that runs throughout, which is change, or I'm not sure if I'm ray 1 or 2, but it has kind of a theme that arcs through it. So I may be actually having the same theme in safety, where there are lives when I was a prostitute. There are lives in which I was a poor person on the street, where I'd be learning about physical safety or my, those kinds of things. But I'm sure I was trying to change something. I don't know what, but it feels like there's an arc, but I would experience the different levels. Also, is that what I think that's what you meant, right? All of a sudden it's like, oh, I think I get it. Is that what you meant?
Yes, basically that is what I meant. The bottom line to the ray structure, and as you say, there's a chapter in The Evolving Soul about this, is that there are 7 possible, I like to call them either signatures of our soul or the backbone of our soul, which means we have an archetype or an orientation at one of these 7 that does not change lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, and that's called our soul ray.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so tell us about the different, now that we're in that section, tell us a little about, there are these 7 rays, and each of the 7 has kind of a different expression of itself. Can you tell us a little about the 7 rays and how it expresses itself?
I'll give it, a kind of a nutshell version. It's a very complicated paradigm. But so the bottom line is, if we take divine energy, we can subdivide it into 7 equal parts. Numbers 1 through 7 are equally important. So it's important for people not to think, oh, well, I'm more important if I'm a ray 4 versus a ray 2. Not so. It's like...
Yeah, the numerical rankings don't mean anything about the importance.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. So ray 1 is actually the hardest ray to carry off. Okay. It's the least common soul ray on our planet because it's so difficult. It's the change agent. It's the person, the example I always give when I'm teaching is it's the Steve Jobs of the computer industry. In the beginning, when Steve Jobs started creating a new type of intuitive-based computer, people thought he was a little bit crazy.
Right.
But he changed the computer industry.
Right.
But he didn't do it alone. So the bottom line is he needed other people with him whose soul ray was not first ray to support his process.
Right.
So number two,
Wait,
and
I want to go back to number one though,
yeah,
because
yeah.
I look at myself, I'm like, I'm not Steve Jobs. I mean, I'm not delusional, nor do I have like delusions of wanting. I mean, I don't even like, I have to be as important as Steve Jobs, but I do feel like every lifetime after another, I try to change things. So I don't really know if I'm a one, which is because I'm trying to change things, or a two, which is the one that you're about to explain. But I wanted you to explain the two. But it's hard, I think, when you're reading through these. But
Yes,
I think also
yes.
with one, when you listen to it, you're like, well, I'm not. You describe this person as the leader of change. Well, I don't consider myself a leader, but I am. I really am trying to shoot for change. So don't know.
So, so think about it, CJ, at all different levels. I use Steve Jobs simply
Hmm.
because most people know who Steve Jobs was and what he did. But you can be a change agent in your family. You
Hmm.
can be a change agent in, let's just say you're a teacher
Hmm.
in a public school. You could be a change agent. All the teachers come together to have meetings and they deal with curriculum and
Right.
discipline and all of that. So no, you can be a Ray one and not be as prominent a person as Steve
Jobs.
Jobs.
Okay.
But again, Ray one is the least common.
Okay.
So there are not a lot of Ray ones on the planet.
Okay.
So Ray two,
Yes.
um, very different Ray.
Hmm.
The Ray two person wants to bring out the best in everyone else.
Hmm.
They want to support everyone else to do their very best.
Hmm.
They're not about change. They're really about support. So,
No.
but it makes it hard unless people know a bit about some of their past lives, because your Ray, you can see my hand is the common thread that
Hmm.
weaves through all of our lives.
Hmm.
So, in order to figure out our soul Ray, it helps to know some of our past lives.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of my past lives have been trying to like change things around, but then a lot of them have been as clergy, either fighting clergy, being clergy, um, you know, hiding in the woods away from clergy. I mean,
Right.
all of them have that kind of arc to them, which is interesting. So that's how come I thought, well, maybe two, but I care about supporting people, but that's not my primary goal. Like, I support them because I want them to change. Sadly.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah,
I mean,
interesting.
that's totally fine. That's a good explanation
Okay.
about you.
And how
Yeah.
about three?
Okay. So three, and three I can easily describe because
That's you're the three, right?
I happen to be a three. So Ray three is someone who is very mental,
Mm-hmm.
wants to learn and learn and learn and learn and learn and meld together what they learn.
Mm-hmm.
So you might call them a scholar, but it doesn't mean they're smarter than anybody else. It
Mm-hmm.
just means they're focused on learning as a predominant aspect, lifetime to lifetime to lifetime.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, I think, well, I like to learn, but I guess the key is that you say lifetime after lifetime, you're focused on learning. And the only way you would know, going back to what you had said, is if you looked at all your lifetimes, which I've done a lot
Okay.
of them. So I'm like, yeah, okay, that's not true for me. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
How
Good.
about, but for
Good.
you, when you actually, because I'm sure you've looked at your past lives, have you had many past lives where like I'm learning, I'm a scholar or I'm a student? When you look at your
Yes,
past lives, you have that
yes,
arc.
many lives. It's why I love to teach. Now
Mm,
that you don't have to be a Ray 3 to be a good teacher, but many effective teachers are Ray 3s
mm,
because they love to just learn. I mean, I could sit on the internet and Google forever, and what I want to do is learn more and more
yeah,
and more.
yeah.
So, there's never enough learning, at least for me. So I'm kind of this crazy person that went to grad school in three or four different programs.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean I'm smarter. It just means I like to learn.
Yeah, I
So
like to
that's
learn
my,
too. So, but I think, but I like to. I could look at this life and say I love to learn. I'm reading, like two or three books every week about the subject, various subjects. But I can't say if when I look at my other lifetimes, I'm like, yeah, I really wasn't learning anything in those
yeah,
lifetimes.
yeah.
Okay, Ray number four,
So
artists, mediators.
Ray 4, and I always want to make sure listeners understand, Ray 4 is the pivot point.
Mm,
1, 2, 3, and then there's 4, 5, 6, 7. And it doesn't mean that 1, 2, 3 are better and 5, 6, 7 are worse. But Ray 4 is the balancing agent, a little bit like Libra energy, if people
Mm-hmm.
know astrology. So Ray 4 is the harmonizer.
Mm.
Ray 4 is the balancer or the balancing of elements that might be a great mediator, someone who
Mm-hmm.
works in the field of mediation. It also might be an excellent interior decorator that knows
Mm.
design elements.
Interesting.
Could be a gourmet chef, could be a feng shui specialist, or could be someone in a family that is
Right.
helping the family balance out relationships.
Right. And then in the book, I think you said what you're pivoting to and from is one is kind of more air spirit based and the one is more kind of grounded soul. Is that what the pivot is?
Mm, No, I guess I wouldn't exactly put
Yeah.
it that way. 1, 2, and 3, to make that slightly more complicated, raise 1, 2, and 3 essentially step down divine energy to bring it to the planet.
Mm.
And 1 hands it to 2, and 2 hands it to 3.
Oh, fascinating. Yes. Okay.
It's a fascinating topic. Then 4 is
Pivot.
simply ready to harmonize the other half of the 3, or the other, half of the 6 out of
Mm.
7, if that
Oh,
makes sense.
interesting. Yeah.
So Ray 4 could also be someone who is just into harmonizing anything. Again,
Mm.
whether it's your home or your family or your children, or you're a great cook and you know how to harmonize,
Mm.
flavors and textures and
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then Ray 5 is bringing actually 3 energy and grounding it. So Ray 5 is
Mm.
mental.
Mm-hmm.
Ray 5 is the strategy logistics person who
Yeah.
figure, so it's like someone who says, well, I'll plan Thanksgiving dinner and we'll all do this as a potluck. The Ray
Right.
5 is going to do that. Ray 5 is going to say, well, CJ, you bring the pumpkin soup, and so you bring the mashed
Yeah.
potatoes, and or it's a military strategist who strategizes military action.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
could see myself being a Ray 5 too when I looked at it, but not sure because it's someone who's really just about getting stuff done. They're all about operationally moving forward, which I can't
yeah,
look at all my lives and go, that wasn't the reason I was doing it.
right,
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't
right.
the intention for making things more efficient or process oriented, or that wasn't the intention. That's why these things are so interesting because I think you can read every single one of these and say, well, I'm that. Like I care about studying, and I studied mediation, so But I think it's really like it really is the past lives that I think help you go. Well, when I really look at these lives, the intention wasn't to learn, or it wasn't to make things more efficient. It's really, in my case, about change. But in your case, it's about learning, right? It's a different kind
That's
of
right.
art.
That's right. That's
Okay, and
right.
how about 6 and
So
7?
so 6 and 7. 6 is actually 2, if you will, on steroids. And what I mean by that is 2 is about remembering, bringing the best out of everyone. 6 is bringing the best out of everyone and putting that into community that works well together.
Oh, interesting.
So 6 is about, how can we work together, and, Susan, you be the best, and John, you be the best you can be, and so on and so forth. And it's really about devotion to a community, devotion to a
Mm,
cause, and
mm.
working together.
Yeah, so it's interesting because so like the 5, 6, and 7s feel like people who are going to materialize something on this plane, whereas 1,
That's
2, and 3 would have all the ideas that are floating out there, right? Okay,
that's a
that's
good
interesting. Okay, and how about 7?
7. 7 is like the alchemy of it all. So 7 really brings 1 through 6 together. Alchemy means, melding elements and
Mm-hmm.
letting them create something anew by bringing all the elements together.
Right.
So 7 is the Merlin energy. It's the mysticism of understanding who we are as souls and why we're here, and merging
Mm.
all the energy of 1 through 6.
Ah, that's my husband. That's my husband for sure. Because I looked, I'm like, yep, that's him.
Yeah.
Okay, and how does knowing that? So now knowing that you're 3, or perhaps I'm a 1, I don't know. But how does knowing this information help you in your day to day life?
Well, I think basically it helps you accept who you are. It
Hmm.
helps you say, "This is my strength. This
Hmm.
is why Linda kept going to school or whatever."
Right.
It helps me comprehend me and not say, "Well, I should be different," because we are who we are. It's like if I was raised speaking English, and I mean, I really respect people who are multi-fluent, so I don't mean
Right.
to minimize that. But if I was raised speaking English and didn't learn any other language,
Hmm.
why would I think I could be highly capable in the French language? It's like, well, if I'm a Ray 3, my strongest suit is not going to be Ray 1. It's going to be Ray 3.
Hmm.
So it puts a fact on the table.
Right.
Now, a couple of other quick comments, CJ, to help broaden this picture,
Right.
or maybe to muddy it a little bit more as well.
Hmm.
Um, Two things. We have a soul ray that doesn't change lifetime to lifetime. But I always hate the word but I use it so much. And we have a personality ray. And the
Oh.
personality ray changes lifetime to lifetime because in order to evolve as a soul, our human personality has to we have to become competent in all seven energies at the personality level.
Ah, okay, got it. So there's another seven energies at the personality level.
Well, they're the same seven energies. It's just that, like for you, in order to evolve, and one of the reasons we're evolving is to also become a spiritual guide, to become
Hmm.
capable as a spiritual guide. If you're reaching that level and getting close to that, you've had a personality in one or more lives as Ray 1, as Ray 2, as Ray 3, as Ray
Oh,
4, because they're all important aspects of how we need to operate.
right. That's how come some of them have a kind of relatedness feeling like I've done that or I've done that before in past lives. But I think it's almost like you were saying, it's what was the end goal that you're trying to achieve in the end, you know? I see. Interesting. Okay, now you mentioned a new idea about soul guides, which is once we actually go up the various colors or levels, you can be a soul guide. So what
That's
is this
right.
idea of a soul guide? And then I thought interesting in your book too, you're saying that there are some people who are soul guides but come to incarnate in a body, because I always think of soul guides as just being spirit people who I'm actually talking to my spirit guides, and but they can actually be real life human beings here on this plane on this earth, which shocked
Yes.
me.
So the bottom line is we have more than one soul guide or spiritual guide, whatever those terms I think are synonymous. So we have a team of guides, and the
Mm-hmm.
more evolved we are, usually the bigger our team.
Mm-hmm.
So our guides are always souls somewhat more evolved than we are.
Thank goodness.
Yes, exactly. Or how else could they guide us?
Yes.
Exactly. So at any one time, and when I say all these things, CJ, it's like, well, why does Linda sound like she knows what she's talking about? This comes from regression after regression after regression.
Mm.
I didn't decide these things. I've heard them from client after client
Right.
after
It's like
client.
observing the data, right? Observing
That's
the
right.
data and saying, this is how could all these people who don't even know each other come up with the same story?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. So we always have a main guide at any one time. It's kind
Hmm.
of like
In any one lifetime or in any one time in our life or both?
it can change. So I think the answer to your question, if I understand what you're asking, is that during a lifetime, your main guide could shift.
Right. When I'm 5 years old, 15, 20, 30, 50, they may have different guides. My main life guide, my main bud is going to be
Right.
different. Okay.
Think about your team of guides almost like a triangle,
Mm-hmm.
where at the point of the triangle up at the top, you have a leader or a coordinator of the
Mm-hmm.
guides, and that's your main guide.
Mm-hmm.
Your main guide usually, not always, but often is no longer incarnating
Mm-hmm.
and is usually the most evolved guide you have. So
Wow.
I have a main guide. I'm familiar with working with that main guide. But in my triangle, kind of think about playing pool and putting all the,
Mm-hmm.
the balls into that rack that you put it in. along, ignoring the point for a minute, all those other balls are your other guides. You can have angelic guides. You can have guides that are in body, as you just mentioned. You can have guides that like your grandmother who
Ancestral
perhaps
guides, yeah.
you adored when and died when you were 12. That soul could be one of your guides.
Okay, and one of the things I find, and we have a couple minutes, so I want to ask you quickly about how you know when your guides are communicating to you. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting, you say sometimes it's through feeling anxious or an emotion, which I always think about it being one of those things that I have to get into a meditative state to talk to my guide. But my guide is actually communicating with me regardless if I do that. Is that right?
That is totally right.
And how does the emotions and anxiety piece work in terms of how would a guide help steer me in the right direction through my emotions or anxiety?
Well, I think we have to think about intuition. So our guides work through our intuition. That's our telepathic mode that we all have. So sometimes, so our guides come to us in various ways. Some of us are fairly clairvoyant. We almost feel like we get mental images. So sometimes we'll even sense, here's my main guide, and my main guide, tends to have this mental image that my guide shows me, and it's a Native American medicine woman, for example. So sometimes intuitively our guides come through our mental images, that's clairvoyance. Sometimes they come to us through clairaudience. We almost feel like we're being spoken to. Sometimes, as you just said, CJ, they come to us through our emotions. So sometimes I'll start feeling a little bit agitated. And because I've learned that it works this way, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe my guide's trying to get my attention. Maybe my guide wants me to shift my attitude, but my guide is increasing the energy that I'm feeling in my body, and I feel that as anxiety.
I would have never thought that in a million years. It just feels like a human thing versus something that my guide maybe. That's fascinating to me.
I totally used to interpret just the way you're interpreting.
Yeah, I'm just pissed off because I've had a long day, I didn't get enough sleep, blah, blah, blah. I've never added to that, maybe my guide is trying to say that to me. I'm going to add that because I do have some, I'm not, that's not my strongest suit, but I can feel things, other people's feelings sometimes. I don't know how to explain it, but okay, got it. So those are the different ways. So then there's clairsentience, clairaudience, clairvoyance.
There's two more. So let me just throw in very quickly two more.
Yeah.
Often our guides speak to us through symptoms in our body. A twitch in our eye, a ringing in our ear, a pressure in the small of our back. Something physiological at times is the way our guides are trying to get our attention.
Yeah.
Then last but absolutely not least, and this is the one that I think a lot of people have trouble trusting, sometimes our guides come to us through our own thought process.
Right.
We think the thoughts are being created in our mind, but no, it's our guide speaking to us through our thoughts.
I know, that's the scariest part, right? It's like, I thought I came up with that great idea. Actually, it was your guide. We've been talking to Dr. Linda Backman, and we've been talking about her book, The Evolving Soul. Real quickly, tell us about are you going to be in East West Bookstore talking about the book? Will people be able to have a regression or experience on the Saturday event? Tell us what the difference is on the Friday and Saturday event.
So Friday night, for the most part, is a lecture, a presentation about a lot of these topics, expanding on these topics. Then Saturday is a 4-hour workshop where I'll both teach, but we're going to do some experiential work together. People are going to be able to dig into understanding how to connect with their guides, how to understand their soul ray, as much as we can cram into 4 hours. We're going to do this coming Saturday at East West Bookshop. Now, I will be guiding individual regressions while I'm in the Seattle area. So if anyone wants to contact me, easiest way to reach me is through my website, which is, these words are all run together. It's www.raven, like the bird, heart, like the heart in our chest, center, ravenheartcenter.com. I'm Linda at ravenheartcenter.com. People can contact me.
Okay, cool. Are you going to be doing those sessions in East West Bookstore or someplace else?
I'm going to be doing those where I'm staying so that I have private and quiet space.
Perfect. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you so much. What wonderful piece of work. So again, The Evolving Soul, Dr. Linda Backman. Make sure to sign up for either an individual regression, an experiential workshop, or also to hear the lecture and learn more about this book. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, CJ. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Sorry we ran over. I know that you've got to go, so I'll hang up so you can go to your next phone call. Thank you so much. I think I'm gonna try to take your class, or actually do a regression, because I have a tightness in my jaw that I think is still related to regression. So
interesting. Well, yeah. I'd love to meet you, work with you.
Yeah, I'll go to your website and sign up for a regression session. Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay,
take
bye.
Care, CJ. Bye-bye.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show. I would love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show, or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.